Baby Boomer fans, we are Jackie and Jeanette, the Pfeiffer Sisters, and love to talk about the 1950s, inviting you to reminisce with us as we explore experiences of that decade. Grab your favorite malt or Green River, make sure you are wide awake, and get ready to be inspired about the 1950s. Welcome to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. It's time for another wonderful reminiscing from the 1950s. And you know, Jackie, these fun chats just cover the entire United States. And we're so thankful for that because, of course, how we lived in North Dakota in the 50s might have been different than someone who lived in Ohio, which is where our guest hails from today. Can you continue to open our program, please?
You bet. So, guests, please look at the purple banner below, which says www While the Windmill Watched. So we encourage you to go there to find out all about these fun chats. In fact, you can look at the past 188 fun chats right there. This is number 189, of course. Then we have vendors for our book, which you'll see in the upper corner there. Some things about the authors and some lists of where we have been and where we will be with promoting the book. So, While the Windmill Watched, a slice of rural America in the 1950s makes a great gift. And you know, there are some holidays coming up. So keep that in mind. Alrighty. So the next few fun chats will focus on hearing from folks from different areas of different areas on the topic of life in the 50s. We will first hear from a man from Ohio, Bob Hare. Bob was born in 1942 in Deaconess Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio. He was raised in Norwood, Ohio, where he graduated from high school. Even though he was raised in the city, he's always been a country boy at heart. Bob married early and had 2 children, Michelle and Mike. 10 years after the marriage, he and his wife divorced in 1970. But in 1971, he married Darlene and acquired a bonus son named David. In 1978, Darlene and this country boy at heart bought a farm near Winchester, Ohio, where they still reside. So, Bob, we welcome you to the 1950s Fun Chat.
Thank you.
Welcome. So, to begin our fun chat today, please paint a picture. This is a big, long question and a big, long answer. Please paint a picture of what it was like to be a young boy in Norwood, Ohio, during the decade of the 1950s. And if you can, include your home life, your neighborhood, your schools, your friends, your activities, etc.
Sure. We lived in Norwood, and Norwood was a suburb of Cincinnati. It was an industrial town. We lived in a house that my mom and dad paid $35 a month to rent the house, and we had a coal stove and coal furnace, and we had to shovel coal in the night to stoke the stove so it would keep us warm. And we lived a very modest life, just kind of average people, so to speak. My mom got sick with cancer in about 1954. And so from then until 1967, she battled that. And finally in 1968, she passed away from that. But she was really a great woman. My dad was a really good guy, played softball and was a pretty good pool shooter. And I have one brother named Bill that's 5 years younger than me. And Norwood was a very unique town. We still, to this day, have contact with many of the people that we started in kindergarten in 1947, and are still friends with and see them on a routine basis daily, or weekly or monthly, still to this day. My family all lived up here in Brown County, where we now live. And every weekend, every holiday, every summer vacation, I was in Brown County, either staying with my 2 old bachelor uncles and my great grandma, or with my grandma, or with one of my cousins. We did a lot of things back then that maybe I learned to hunt. I started coon hunting with my uncles, and when I was probably about 6 years old, and rabbit hunting, and I could still take my kids and show them where I killed my first rabbit on a pond bank over here right outside of Sardinia when I was about 7 or 8 years old. I still got a BB gun that my great uncle bought me probably in the early 1950s, and so it was just a real experience for me to be up here in the country. We
Bob, I want to go back to that kindergarten time your classmates in kindergarten. You said like you're still good friends with a lot of them.
Yes.
When you get together, are there any certain stories from those kindergarten days or those early school days that come up?
Oh,
we want to hear those.
Well, yeah, probably are. I know. I was. I guess I was a little hellion when I was little, and when I was in the first grade, I couldn't keep from talking all the time, and so the teacher put that big brown wrapping tape across my mouth, and tape my mouth shut, and I would take my tongue and keep working on it till I got a hole through the tape, and then I could continue to talk and get in trouble. And we had a teacher in the second grade that was she was very strict and very mean, and just expected a whole lot of us, and sometimes she got more of us than she wanted, but she was mean. We had one in the third grade that would crack you on the back of the head with a big ring she had on her finger, and I know I went home several times with my head bleeding from where I got cracked in the head. But those were just good. Those were just days, and I looking back, I can see why they did what they did. So,
were you teasing the girls, or what caused that?
Oh yeah. I had a girl that sat in front of me. Her name was Diane Brooks, and she had long, beautiful blonde hair, and I used to dip the ends of her hair in the inkwell. And so we did that, and then when we got a little bit bigger, had a real good friend, Diana Key, and she was one of the girls that kind of developed a little earlier than the rest of the girls did, and I sat behind her, and I used to snap her bra and slap her in the back of her bra, and so we still laugh about stuff like that.
I bet the girls aren't laughing. Or at least at that time.
It was just one of those deals, that's what happened, and can't go back and change it, but it did happen. But it's created a bond that we still share today. And growing up in the 50s, I had probably as many female friends, and not girlfriends, but I mean just friends that we ran around with as we did guys. And so it's still today. It's a great pleasure just to be around those people and get to share time with them, and keep up with what's going on.
Yeah.
I have a question. Back up to that inkwell. Why was there ink in the inkwell, and how did you use it? Maybe some people don't know about that.
Other than to dip hair in the
well, we had this man would come in. His name was Mr. March, and he would come in and he gave writing instructions, big fancy letters and stuff, none of which I could ever master. But anyway, and then we had ink pens that you dipped in the inkwell to get the ink on the pen and write with. So that's why there was ink in the inkwell, because we used them to
for your penmanship.
Oops, we lost you. Bob, are you there? I think we'll get him back. We'll get him back. I don't know how to. Okay, hold on. The story's good.
You're right. Or-
If I would have been that girl with the long blonde hair, I don't think I would be laughing. Would have
Oh,
been
right. I do it every day.
Okay, and I'm just going to let this run so that I can splice it.
Okay.
Otherwise, if I stop it, we're going to have to start all over again.
It was 9:52,
Okay, thank you.
or a little bit before that. But
I should get a hold of Darlene.
yeah, right in the
I'll
middle of
send a new invitation.
Send me a new invitation.
No, to Darlene. Kind of reminds me of Anne of Green Gables.
Yeah, I didn't realize that they still had ink and inkwells in those. In his school.
Well,
It's just a Jackie like Bob. He was a very skilled person in his job.
oh, yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a multi-millionaire.
Where did he work? What company?
Oh,
Yeah, Bob was with pharmaceutical company for years and years. Very, I don't know what he did. Sales,
he
maybe.
made a pile of money.
Anyway, very skilled in what he did.
Because of his gift of gab.
Might be, yeah. Well, and oftentimes when I think of a fountain pen and ink, I think of yours in the peacock blue, because that was such a unique color.
But that had a cell in it, though, so that's where the ink was.
It had what?
It had an ink cell. Try
Okay.
to. Whoop, Darlene.
Darlene, no, there she is. She's still there.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, hi, Darlene. Okay. We'll bring Bob in, and then I'll just edit the video on where we stop and where we start.
Okay, I don't know. Here, I'll give it back to him then.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, we'll continue on, Bob.
Okay.
Okay,
Uh,
let me let's see. Okay, what is it? I'm gonna say 12.
12, 27, 28, 29.
No,
30.
Bob, tell me about those inkwells. Did your desks in school have a little circle cut out at the top of them so that you could put a bottle of ink in them?
Yes, that's exactly what it was. It was each individual desk had a hole cut up in the right hand top corner, and then there was a glass bottle with a metal piece that screwed on the top and held it in there.
Yes.
And, so every desk had those, and that's kind of what we did. You know, it's how we used the inkwells.
So you used it for penmanship class. Did you use the ink other way pen at other times, or did you use a pencil?
Normally a pencil, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But the ink was there all the time, so it was just a temptation I couldn't resist, I guess.
I guess.
Did you have a big chief tablet that you used for your school?
Did what now?
A lot of tablets that students used back then were called Big Chief. Do you remember?
Yeah, line tablets.
Yeah.
Had lines on them and a margin on the left there, and yeah, that's kind of what we had back then. We went to the public schools there in Norwood were very, very good because it was an industrial town. There was a lot of money from the industry there, so our school system was extremely good. Probably one of the better in Ohio for that period of time, and so we had good schools and good teachers and we should have learned a lot. I'm not sure all of us did, but we should have.
So back up, please. What kind of industries were in that area?
There was General Motors, and there was a Fisher Body, Alice Chalmers, Globe Warnicke, American Laundry Machine, U.S. Playing Card, several different industries that have since, most of them have moved out different places, but in that period of time, it was a very successful town, very good place to be raised, and just just a great place really at that time.
Has the population shrunk from that time in the 50s then, if a lot of that industry's gone?
Yes, the population is down and the demographics have changed completely. So it's a lot different now from what it used to be. But the high school is still there, and they still actually use a high school, and it's still there, and it's still a nice school to go into.
Good.
Yeah.
So anything else about your living in that area, in that community, that you want to share before we go on to the next topic?
Well, yeah, when I was, let's see, I was 14, so that would have been in about 1955 or 6. My cousin and I, Jack Ritchie, that lived up here in Fincastle, where I now live, he was in 4-H, and I used to go to all the 4-H meetings, although I didn't really actually belong to 4-H, but I was always at his house or my grandma's house, so I was pretty active in their 4-H club. Well, he and I loaded up his dad's truck. His dad had a flatbed truck with cattle racks on it. We loaded a bunch of dairy cows up and a bunch of stuff, and we took off and went from here at Fincastle up to the Clinton County Fair and stayed all week. And we were only 14. Of course, back then you could get by with that. You could kind of squeeze by. But we went up there and stayed, and we stayed at the Brown County Fair. And we literally drove that truck all over the country, and never had any problems or anything. But it was quite an experience. Looking back on it, it was, at that time, I thought it was really a big deal. And I guess to this day, I still think it was a big deal, because we probably shouldn't have been driving that truck out on the road. It's about 40 or 50 miles difference from where we are now. But we could drive, and we didn't have any problems. So we did that, had a great time doing it.
Did that truck only go about 40 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour at the most?
Yeah, it would go pretty good. It was a Chevy truck, and it ran pretty good, but we didn't drive it very fast. We drove maybe 50 miles an hour or something like that, going up there. But it would run a little faster than that if you wanted to, I guess. But it was a big standard shift 4-speed with a crawler gear on it, and just a typical farm truck back in those days.
Yes.
How many cows did you take usually to show?
I think we took 5 or 6 big Ayrshire milk cows, and then the hay and straw and feed and so forth and so on, and so we stayed in the barn, slept right in amongst the cows, and just like it used to be at fairs.
Yeah, good times.
Yeah.
Did you have to were these heifers, or did you have to take a lot of supplies for milking too?
No, they were actually cows. There was a couple heifers, but most of them were in milk. And at the fairgrounds, they had portable milkers, and you could wheel the milkers around and milk the cows, or take the cows over and milk them where they had the milkers. So we had to milk twice a day, and had to have the rudders right when we showed them, and so forth and so on. So it was. I guess that's really where my love for livestock and stuff really began, was back there in those days when I was a kid on the farm like that. I had a cousin that showed steers. He won the Chicago World's Fair one year with a steer, and so I've been around it pretty much all my life, and that's where it all stemmed from, was right here where I live now.
Neat. It is interesting how when you get drawn into the livestock showing world, it's hard to leave it, isn't it?
Oh, it is. I still absolutely get excited when I get to go out and judge a show, or when we get to go watch a show, and I'm one of them kind of guys that I still like to, although I have trouble getting up and down, that comes with age, but I still like to fit on cattle and clip sheep and work on goats and stuff. And so I'm not as steady handed as I used to be, for sure, but I still enjoy doing it and still enjoy going. And I guess I will till the day I die. I'll just enjoy it. So
Yes. Well, I remember there was a time when you also showed to me that you like to teach children about livestock showing. There was a time I recall you had gone to New Mexico for a lamb camp with
yeah,
some friends and with our child.
yeah, we did. Mel Marks and I can't think of who else went down, but we put on a lamb camp down at the New Mexico Fairgrounds in Albuquerque, and we did that. And I've done that several different places. I enjoy working with kids. We used to have, when we had lambs here and we were selling lambs. We would have a camp every year here at our house, and at times we had anywhere 75 kids and their lambs here, and I'd get a couple of my buddies to come over and we split them up and work with them individually and try to help them learn to be better showmen and teach them how to do things. And so yeah, I've kind of always enjoyed that.
Mhm.
So back up, you were teaching on how to be a good showman for youth. Did you have experience showing, or did you go to a class or something on how to be a teacher, a judge, or what?
Well, actually, I didn't. I don't know of any classes, or at least back when I started judging, probably 40 years ago. I just had been around it for a while. We've been successful. I had my youngest son was a very good showman and very successful, and he showed sheep and he showed cattle and did a great job with that. And I kind of just picked things up with some of my friends that were showmen and picked things up, and I guess I just kind of picked it up, self-educated, if you will, and I figured out what I liked and what I wanted them to do, and that's what I always looked for, and so it was a pleasure teaching that and looking forward as well. I enjoyed it.
Mhm.
So you mentioned some farm animals, but then what about this being a judge for not beagles, beagles,
Beagle
dogs?
House, yeah.
What
Well,
field trials? What does that entail? How did you get into that?
They have two classes of beagles. They have 13-inch and 15-inch, and they're measured at the shoulder. And then they have competition for them, brace trials, which it's one dog versus another in a brace, and you pick a winner, and then you bring them back in a certain order, and then you work your way down until you come up with a winner in the different places. And other field trials are pack trials, where there will be like 7 in a pack, and you do the same thing, but it's just it was 7 in there instead of 2, and they acquire points for field champions, and they acquire points to make their championships through those trials, and it's based on how they run a rabbit and how accurate they are, and if they overrun the track, and if they swing around, how independent they work, and so forth and so on. And it was really enjoyable. It was really fun, and I judged several lots of trials, actually, all around, all over the Midwest through here. And they usually you judge on horseback, so you can see what's going on, and it was a lot of fun in that time of my life. I really enjoyed it. We had a great time doing it, and we did it as a family as well, and we had a little enclosure, 5 or 6 acre enclosure, where we would start puppies, teach them to run rabbits and get them going, and for people, and So it was a big part of our life there for several years.
Bob, when you talk about there either a two dogs in the pack or seven dogs in the pack, do these dogs have to work together as a pack, or how does that all work? How do those individual personalities of those dogs all mesh?
That's exactly what it's all about. You're looking for the dog that stays closest to the track, and one that when they come to the end, if a rabbit, will say, goes out and makes a real sharp turn to the right, well, a lot of dogs will swing way out to the left and come around and hook around and get on that track. But the good one will go right there where he stops out there at the end of that track, and he'll work in a very close circle there, maybe a 3 foot, 4 foot circle, and he'll get that track going off to the right. And that's the one you're looking for, is that one that's steadiest and the one that's the most accurate on the track.
Okay. Would these necessarily be siblings that work in a pack together?
No. They could be, but they're usually, if it's a pack, there'll usually be like 7 different owners and 7 different dogs, and yeah, I mean, a lot of these trials, there'll be a couple hundred dogs or 100 dogs. I don't think it's quite as big anymore as it used to be, but there used to be several, and they would last sometimes 2 days to get down to the end where you needed to be. So
your final selection then, or your winners of the trials, what characteristics did they have to show in order to win?
They had to be patient, they had to be accurate, they had to be controlled competitiveness. Not some of them are really over competitive, and they just want to get in too big of a hurry, and then they get themselves in a trouble, and they can't work their way out of it. But the good one will be the one that's real steady and just goes right along. The one that barks on the track right. Some dogs will be when they get competitive, they won't bark until they get way out in front of somebody, and then they'll bark because they're trying to get away from them. You don't want that. You just want that, again, that steady, consistent dog all the way down through the trial. The one that does the most accurate and best job of running that rabbit.
Is that something similar to maybe what a horse race would be? You have a group and they're competitive, and yet there has to be a certain amount of measure that the animal has to take in order to come out the winner.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. It's it's like judging sheep or goats or cattle or whatever you're judging. There's some subjectivity involved in it. I mean, there's certain things that certain people like, and that's, to me, is a good thing, because if we all liked exactly the same thing and all had the same thing, we wouldn't have to have any of these events, because they'd all be doing exactly the same thing. So there is some subjectivity involved in it, and some judges would let them get by with a little more than others, and some were maybe a little more critical than others. And it's kind of like when you get in a sheep show, for example, and you got one walking out there. Some judges will walk and walk and walk until they whittle them down pretty much on structure, and other people, they'll pick them because they got more muscle, and they don't pay as much attention to structure. So there is some subjectivity involved in it, and to me that is a good thing, as I said, because I think you need to have different people evaluate different things to make sure that we wind up somewhere near the middle, as close to the middle as we can get, and stay there.
Okay.
So let's go from those little dogs to something a bit larger, and I will ask you, how did a 3-legged Great Pyrenees dog your life?
That was old Jeanette.
Gal.
That was Jeanette. That was my buddy Steve Evelyn down in Texas. That was one of his guard dogs, and she was a Pyrenees hound cross. Actually, what they called an Indian guard dog, and a lot of those Indians down in the Southwest would use any dog that would protect their flock they would use them. And Jeanette was a result of a Pyrenees and a hound dog cross. Excuse me. And she got her leg caught in a trap, and she lost about the half of one of her rear legs. But it didn't deter her. I mean, she was probably the to me the epitome of a guard dog. Nothing ever bothered anything when Jeanette was around. And then she'd have puppies, and I wound up getting one of the males from from Steve, and he was probably one of the best dogs I ever had. He just looked like an old long-haired hound dog, and but he never left the sheep. He stayed right in the sheep, and stayed right with them. If I ran them through the handling system to trim their feet, he'd go right through the handling system with them, and that was the same thing. Jeanette did the same thing. She was the same kind of dog as that. So yeah, she was pretty unique.
Bob, tell our viewers too about the personalities of a guard dog. And do they need training? Do they not? How do they adapt to those that they're going to guard?
Well, it truly is instinct. I mean, it's bred into them from centuries of guarding sheep and goats. And when you get out of the United States, you get into foreign countries, the primary animal that they have is sheep and goats, mostly goats. I think I read somewhere that 65% of the meat that's eaten in the world is goat meat, and that really doesn't surprise me, because when you get out in some of these other countries, there are just goats everywhere. But these dogs have an inherent ability to guard these animals. They stay right with them. My dogs that I've had here, if a crow landed in the field, they'd run them off. Or if a buzzard was circling up in the ground, up in the air, why they would run around and bark under them and get them so that they wouldn't land around there. And they stayed right with the sheep. We had sheep here for about 40 years, somewhere in that range. And we never lost a sheep or a goat to a coyote or a predator of any type, as long as we had those dogs. And that's, to me, that was made them all worthwhile. My dogs, some of them were friendly to people, and some of them were just standoffish. If you got them when they were puppies and were around them a lot, they would be very social, and they would still do their job. But if in the event of some of mine that came up from Texas that had just been out on a 2,500 acre ranch, didn't really know people, why they would just get out there and be with the sheep, and you could go out there. They wouldn't attack you or bite you or anything, but they wouldn't come up and let you pet them. They were just they have unique characteristics. Some of them are friendly, some of them are not quite so friendly, and but the one thing that they do is they do have that inherent quality of guarding the sheep and the goats, and mine would even go over into the cattle, as far as going over there. If a calf was over, they'd go over and lick the calf off, and so it was fun having them. I mean, they're amazing dogs. I could tell you stories about them. I'll tell you one little story. We came home from work one day, and there were, I think, 4 or 5 ewes in the middle of the barn, and there was about 7 or 8 lambs, and they were all piled up in a pile. And I'm sure you've seen that, Janine. If you have more than one ewe and a bunch of lambs, you try to figure, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this figured out?
Right.
Who's
the mama?
Yeah, right. And I had at that time, one of the dogs was sitting over in a corner, and he was just barking, just woof woof, and it took me about I don't know, an hour and a half or something. I put all the ewes in lambing pens, and then I kept taking babies to them until they finally decided which ones they liked. And so that, like I say, it was about an hour and a half, and then that dog just sat there in that one corner and just barked all the time. And I said, what in the world is wrong with that dog? I said, he's driving me crazy, that constant barking. I went over there and there was a gate that was up against the wall, and he was sitting right at the end of that gate. And when I got over there, I shut that gate, and here was one of those lambs had crawled behind that gate.
Yeah.
And he was sitting there barking. And as soon as I picked that lamb up, he quit barking. He was not going to quit barking until I got that lamb taken care of. And so, it's those types of things that people look at you like, oh, you're probably exaggerating that. But no, that's not an exaggeration. That's an absolute fact. And there are other stories that you could tell, and anybody that's had guard dogs would tell you the same thing. I'm sure they've experienced those types of things with them as well.
So when a person buys a puppy from you, is that you sell these puppies?
I did, yes, I did sell them. Always tried to sell them reasonable because I wanted people to have good guard dogs, and I didn't buy them as an investment to make money on selling them. I just they would get pregnant and they would have puppies, and they might go out here in the field and dig a hole up under a tree and have them up in under a tree. And
really?
Sometimes you have to dig them out, but they were good. And I think I never had anybody really complain about anything that they got for pups. And we sold them to lots of states in the country. I'll tell you, I didn't keep track of how many, but I'm sure there were several.
Bob,
excuse me.
Did the females were they ever bothered when you if you took their pups away from them?
No, they wouldn't. They never bothered if it was me. Now I don't know that a stranger could walk in there and take a pup away from them, but we didn't handle our dogs a lot because we wanted them to be guard dogs. We didn't really want them to be pets, and so I didn't really, other than warming them and giving them puppy shots and stuff. I didn't really handle them very much, but no, none of them ever tried to get rough with me. So, but I would tell other people, just ignore them and let them go, and that worked out the best for us.
Sure.
So my question is that when people came to purchase and they purchased their puppy and they took one or two home, did they then, when they get home, did they walk the dog around the property, or how was the dog to know where their line was on the property?
Well, that's a great question, really, because what I would tell people was, for about the first week or 10 days, keep the puppies in a contained area where there are some like some ewe lambs or some lambs or some ewes and babies or something, and then let them out into a larger area, but still have it contained where they can't get out for another week or two. And as soon as they figure out, that they're supposed to stay with those sheep and with those babies, that's really all it would take. I mean, they like I say, they have that inherent quality that they just want to, that their desire is to be with the sheep or goats and to guard them. So that's there already, and you're just enforcing it the first month or two of their life, and when you get done with that, why, they're big enough that they can go out, and you have to be a little careful because you turn them out too young, and coyotes, if they get 5 or 6 coyotes on one puppy, well, they could kill a pup, but they won't kill a big dog. But that's kind of what we always did with them, what we recommended with people, what they would do with them to train them to be in that area.
Yep, for sure. We are about at the end of our fun chat, Bob. I want to know, before we go, though, I'm going to go back to the 50s. That was probably a time where there were outhouses in the area.
Oh,
so did you ever do any shenanigans with the outhouses? I know some people who have, but I'm wondering, that's you.
Well, I won't say that we never turned one over once in a while, but you know, we had our share of mischievous fun, I guess. We used to be an old man out here between Sardinia and Beaufort that raised watermelons, and we'd go out there and get a watermelon once in a while, and he'd get mad and chase us all the way home, and tell my uncle or my grandma on me, and so we did stuff like that. But yeah, there's been a few occasions where we've maybe tipped an outhouse a little bit, where it would not be standing very good, and the other thing that we used to do was we'd wait till somebody went in one. If we catch somebody in there, and then throw rocks at the back of it.
Oh.
So yeah, we had our share of aggravation, I guess you might call it. But
Okay.
My husband is sitting on the sidelines, and he said you should have thrown a firecracker in there.
Oh no.
Yeah.
See how you two would have been great companions.
Yeah. I'm sure we would have. Yeah. Yeah.
We are
Thank you.
grateful to have had this conversation with you. It's been really fun to learn of your life in the 40s and 50s and where it took you, really, at least the livestock industry.
Well, I thank you very much, and it's been my pleasure, and certainly over the years, you and Fred have meant a lot to Darlene and I, and we sure appreciate your friendship, and been great knowing you. So
and they're not going away.
Yeah, we feel the same about you.
For a while. Jackie, it's nice to meet you.
I'm glad to have met you too. And folks, we do thank you for checking out this 1950s Fun Chat, and tell your friends and even your relatives about this 1950s Fun Chat. So until next time, toodaloo.